One of the recent developments that we've had in our economy as of late is the rise in a certain blue and white website whose name I'm avoiding for monetization reasons. It's become a lucrative career for people looking to get into this particular industry for quite a while now, and it's been in the news recently because their owner, a guy called Leonard Radvinsky, has received a $338 million payout as CEO. That's £268.5 million just in dividend payouts alone for their time as the owner of the website in question. There is also a conversation that's being had about the morality of the platform itself. There was a discussion at LBC between a feminist campaigner, who I'm a big fan of, Patsy Stevenson, who you should all go follow. She does excellent work, who was debating Anne Widdecombe on LBC, chaired by confused capitalist Ali Mirage. So we're going to watch their debate, and I'm going to critique their viewpoints, and then I'm going to perhaps provide some nuance into my opinion of the industry that's blooming here, because I think that there is more nuance than people want to give this debate.
I was saddened by it, but not at all surprised. The fact is that we have now, over many decades, probably going back to the late 60s, over many decades now, we've been progressively moving as a society towards one in which sex is almost venerated.
Does it trouble you that...
I mean, I don't see this. I mean, we've always been a very sexualized society. It is something that has been used as a marketing tool since the dawn of time. In fact, this form of labour has been, again, a fact of life for the entirety of the time in which commerce has existed, really and truly. And I think there are criticisms of that. But I don't see where the evidence that she can say that sex as a concept has become venerated by society, at least any more than it had previously. Like, the way in which we approach sex has become more egalitarian, a little bit more equal in abstract, right? I do think there is an undercurrent of misogyny in all of this. But the fact that women are allowed to be more openly owning of their own sexuality, I think is broadly a good thing.
There are women, young women in their 20s, late teens, and in some cases, in many cases, in fact, underage girls who are faking their identities to go on sites like this simply to make money.
If you're of age and you're getting on there to make money, welcome to capitalism. He's called himself a proud capitalist. Yeah, of course they're on there to make money. We're in a cost of living crisis. People do need extra income, and this is a method in which they're going to be able to do so. Again, we can get on to the morality of this being a form of income later on. I think, again, I have some nuanced takes on this. But saying, well, they're making money out of this in the first place is this idea that somehow there is something specifically bad about this form of labour being used as a vehicle to be able to make money, as opposed to selling your body for any other form of labour. This kind of moralisation of this kind of work over any other kind of work. For a secret, the problem is capitalism.
I just think, like, this argument is appalling.
Like, shame on what? Shame on the idea of sex, because Anne Widdecombe is a Catholic, and they view basically everything as shameful. So the idea that we should get our moral ideas of how we should quantify shame from someone who believes the kind of mumbo-jumbo that comes from Catholicism. But Catholics, you get zero good faith from me.
I think that, OnlyFans, why are we talking about OnlyFans when we've got Pornhub, for example? The porn industry is trafficking women on a regular basis, but no one talks about that. The only time we talk about the sexualization of women, in quotation marks, is when women are choosing to put that content out themselves and getting the money for themselves.
Yeah, and why would they?
The only issue I have with, the only issue...
And Patsy, 100% correct here, right? The real problem is the institutionalized porn industry that exploits the labour value of these sex workers. The sex workers themselves have always been exploited by the porn industry. It extracts their surplus labour value to then sell a product that they then use and promote to spread the misogynist ideas at the behest of the producers themselves, right? It's the directors and the producers of this content who get to choose the narrative that's being sown by the porn industry, which is a misogynistic one. Anyone who's worked near the porn industry knows just how misogynistic, just the amount of abuse that goes on, the amount of trafficking that goes on. She's again points out, right, that trafficked women will have things on Pornhub because the industry is absolutely grotesque and full to the brim of incredibly seedy individuals. And yet we're suddenly having a conversation about OnlyFans, which is a platform in which people can own their own content and curate their own content without there being the control over the content and the same kind of surplus value extraction that's going on in the actual porn industry industrial complex. Those are two different things. If people really cared, why were we not talking about Pornhub before now?
I have with OnlyFans is that sometimes we have vulnerable women or women underage, for example. They should have regulations 100%. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. Why can't women, if they're going to be objectified anyway, sexism is rife in our society, why are they, shamed? They don't feel shame because they shouldn't feel shame of their own body. That's what we were given when we were born.
I think what we have is the death of shame.
And she says, obviously, the death of shame because she views sexuality as shameful in itself. This kind of Catholic doctrine. There's no intuited moral position that she's come to here. She's repeating this dogmatically from the scripture that she supports. There are plenty of utilitarian arguments to say that these things perpetuate sexism. There is plenty of truth to a lot of those statements. But Patsy is right. These things are going to happen anyway. And platforms that allow ownership over that fact for the sex workers in particular is indeed a good thing. It's a good thing that they can have ownership of it rather than the ownership being in the hands of unscrupulous directors, producers and owners within the porn industry who do indeed exploit these people.
It's now quite normal for young girls, and I mean young girls, not talking about people in their late 20s, young girls to go out of an evening, get absolutely drunk, have sex casually, and then the next day say, boast about it. Now,
yeah, they're young people having sex, and that's happened forever. If you're going to try and want to stop young people having sex, you're going to have a hard time. This isn't a new thing. But what's new is that women are taking control of it themselves. Is that it was previously only shameful for women to do it. And now that they feel less shame about doing it, because men have always not been shamed for being sexually promiscuous, women previously were shamed. And now we're moving slowly but surely. There may be some regressives out there, the Andrew Tate types, who are trying to stop this movement forward. But there is a changing of the guard in which there is indeed less stigma attached to women engaging in some level of sexual promiscuity in their younger years. As someone who thinks that sex is fine and fun, and as long as everybody's consenting parties and things are being done in a safe, sane and consensual way, is something that I think is a good thing. And empowering women to make those decisions for themselves, to have control over their own bodies, over their own sexuality, can only be a good thing.
You're basically slut-shaming people is what you're doing. And to be honest, I think you're a bigot anyway, so I'm not going to listen to much.
Okay, but Patsy,
no,
I
think it's silly. No, because she's just slut-shamed people. She's slut-shaming women, saying they go out and get drunk and have sex. So, is it any of your business? No. So you're the person that said don't have cheese sandwiches if you can't afford them.
Patsy,
no, because one of the reasons that people are going on OnlyFans is because we don't have money in this country. We have a cost of living crisis. People are dying of starvation, and some women, are turning to OnlyFans. So.
And that's the point, right? Is that really and truly, when it comes down to brass tacks on it, right, is that you're never going to fully get rid of sex work. I do think that in general, when we treat women's bodies as a commodity to be sold, this can lead to negative externalities when we look at it. When young boys are growing up knowing that they can always have access to be able to purchase access to women, this is something that we need to make sure that we don't get to a position where they prima facie view women's bodies as a commodity. Now that's an issue. That's an issue. We can discuss how in which we take care of that stuff. But the sex work is never going to go away. It is never going to go away. If you criminalize it, it just makes it harder, right? The Nordic model doesn't work either because it makes the men more violent too. That's failed too. The decrim model is the best way of being able to look at this kind of stuff. But really and truly, the fight between OnlyFans and Pornhub is, as Patsy said it, the control over what people do and don't curate. But I want to touch more on OnlyFans though. We've seen how much money the CEO has made. Do you know OnlyFans takes a 20% cut of everything that is paid into as purchases through that site? They can control people's platforms. People's entire accounts get shut down for completely nebulous reasons, not even if they haven't broken the TOS. There was a time when they were going to get rid of sex work from the platform because payment processors were kicking up a stink about it as well. There is the level of control that the platform has over what people do and don't put on it is a similar kind of exploitation into the capitalist relationship between the porn industry and the people who work in the porn industry as models, for example. Not only are they exploited by the model of the economic model that goes into it in the first place, the producers and the directors and the people who are abusers within that network too, there is also, when it comes to OnlyFans, the power of the platform. The platform has all the power to delete your content, to be able to extract your money, because if you've got, payments waiting in your account on OnlyFans and your account gets shut down, that money goes, that's gone, that's not yours anymore. You lose out on all of that money. They have too much power. They have too much power in terms of the financial element of how much they take away from money that's being spent on these people, and they have too much power to be able to impact the income of the people who are the people who've made these people's money in the first place, right? The models who use OnlyFans, they are the ones who generate all the content, who generate all of the money, and OnlyFans take 20% of the money just because they have a bank of servers somewhere. That's all it is. Now that is a problem. Now the answer to this, of course, is the platform capitalism is garbage, and what it should be is a cooperative. There are plenty of better ways of doing this. There's things you've got like Wish Tender. There is Frisk, which is actually sex worker owned, for example. And it's what is really important that if you really want to support sex workers, rather than the savior complex where you try and tell people you know better than them, that you know better than them what they should be doing with their life, what they should be doing with their bodies, overriding their autonomy, right? We can have a discussion about the wider implications of sex work being normalized, and I'm happy to have that conversation. But while people need to be access this, because let's forget the cost of living crisis, as was pointed out, is why people are engaging in this. Capitalism is the root cause of the need to engage in this stuff in the first place too, the need for that income, and the government is facilitating this by not protecting the lower classes enough during a cost of living crisis, where people feel like they're forced and they need to be able to get into the position too. We need to protect them. We need to protect them through fighting against the unscrupulous platforms, the people at the top of the pie who make all the money, who are responsible for the failures of the industry. And we need to support things like the Sex Workers Union, the union that fights for their economic needs and for the legislative needs to protect these people when it comes down to brass tacks, and the protection is the important bit. And I don't know what the solution for the social problem is. I really don't know what the solution for the social problem is, because there is a problem with the way in which people view women when it's so easy to go online and be able to be in the position to purchase, women's bodies as a commodity. I get that, but I don't know what the solution to that is. I couldn't tell you, but banning sex work has never worked as a solution to that. It never has ever. But as long as women have ownership, and men, of course, men do this stuff too. Men are sex workers, men do OnlyFans, non-binary people, but all of that, let's not minimize the fact that it is every gender who is a part of this industry as well. But it's predominantly women, and the societal misogyny gets created by it is mostly aimed at women. Once they have ownership of what they do and don't curate, that's the important part. I just think we should have a fairer economic system, better regulations, and a more honest and frank conversation with the consumers of this content about what it does and doesn't mean to be a part of what's happening here at the end of the day. Really, there would be fewer people going online doing OnlyFans if work paid better, if we had a better social safety net, and if the lower classes were properly protected by the current government and the current economic system. Because it's not a secret that a huge number of these girls that are getting into OnlyFans are people who are from poor backgrounds, because it's an easy way of making, not an easy way, it's a very difficult way. In fact, it's so difficult to make money. In fact, the vast majority of the money on OnlyFans is made by like the top 1% of curators. There really is like a 1% and the 99%. And the people get sold this dream that online sex work is easy money when it is not. It's hard money. Marketing is hard. Getting yourself known is hard. You make a very small amount of money when you do get into doing stuff on OnlyFans. It's not easy money at all. But they view it as their ticket out of serfdom. They view it as their ticket out of destitution, which, lower class people do engage in. And so if you do believe, which I can understand the argument too, that there is some morally questionable part of engaging online sex work, the people who are going to get hurt by this are working class people who are forced into doing so because their existing avenues of income are so meager they can't afford to live in a cost of living crisis. So if you want to blame people, you blame the producers, you blame the people at the top of the industry, and you blame the economic system, and you blame the government. But the actual sex workers themselves, the women that are engaging in this stuff, which Anne Widdecombe is blaming in this clip, are not the people to blame. They should be supported through unionization, through regulation, and through broader societal support as well. I think that's my main point to take away from this. Do you think sex work will disappear once good jobs and socialism happens? No, I do not think it will disappear. But I do think it will be minimized. I think that the likelihood of it being as widespread as it is now is much, much lower. There was people still selling sex for rubles in the Soviet Union, right? LGBT plus socialists very well said, and why we proudly work with and support decrim now, hookers against hardship and the sex workers union, no pride for some of us without liberation for all. Very, very true. In general, I think this is the case you can make for lots of platform capitalism, right? right? Why should Uber take 20% of every driver fee because they own the server that the app gets used on? Why should Bandcamp take the cut? Why should Stripe take the cut? Why should Twitch take 50% of my subs, for fuck's sake, right? Like, just because they own the servers that I operate on. Obviously, I've signed up to this, I've agreed to this transaction, sure. But, you know, if there was a streaming cooperative, there's no reason to not cooperatize these platforms. There's a cooperative rideshare app in New York that's trying to undercut Uber by being better for drivers in terms of revenue, because you can just take the total operating costs of the server away from people proportionally to how much they earn through the rideshare app, and then the remainder of the profit goes all to the riders. All you're doing is take away a middleman who does no actual labor and just owns a bank of servers somewhere. I just hate platform capitalism so much. If you enjoyed this video, please do consider liking and subscribing. It does help out the channel and the algorithm. And if you click the bell notification icon, it will let you know when I go live and when I upload videos. If you'd like to follow me on social media, my handle is @NoJusticeMTG, and that is Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, and YouTube. If you want to support my channel in a more financial manner, you can do so by becoming a member for just 99p, by super chatting, or by supporting me on Patreon, with the link is in the description of this video, and hopefully I'll catch you on the next segment.